Hey yo, I'm clapping. Why? Because it's a celebration. Why is it a celebration, you ask? Do you know? Do you know why we're celebrating today? And give me 1 second because I'm really trying to make sure that my stream information is updated. Um, because we are live. And again, if you're watching this later on YouTube, know that we're live every day on Twitch, right? Twitch.tv the real rich bees, right? The real rich bees. So here we go. Today is Friday. The reason why we're celebrating is because we reached our 40 follower goal right there. Right there. Take a look. We reached 40 followers. So we are turned up about it. We are so excited about it. Couple shots out for those in the back. Listen, I'm so humbled that you guys want to build with me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, chat. That's right. We live every day. And it's usually around this time. Usually my schedule runs between 10 and 12 o'clock. I'll go live. How long I stay live depends on how much time it takes to go through what we're talking about today. So if you looked at the title, you can check it out below. I hope you got the notification. But what you'll see is today we're talking identity. That's what we're talking about today, right? Why? Because we've sat there and we've talked about all of these other things, right? And I got a list of them, okay? So I'm going to pull up the list and I'm going to tell you because I want to make sure that we can stay on the same page, right? And so up to this point, what have we talked about? We've talked about everything from um, goal setting. We followed that up with talking about things like focus, talked about discipline, talked about um, boundaries, right? We did boundaries yesterday. We talked about decision making. We even earlier in this, we talked about the mirror, right? I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah. Listen, there's a lot of work for that. A lot of work for that intro. So I hope y'all like that intro. Um, but we talked about the mirror, right? And I said before that the mirror tells you who you are, right? It does not tell you who you wish you were. It does not tell you who you say you are, right? The mirror reflects the results of the decisions you made, aka your habits, your discipline, your priorities, right? All of these things play into a part of what the mirror is telling you. But the thing that everybody kind of misses when we start talking about the mirror, when we start talking about what it's telling you, that the mirror is only reporting the past activities. It's reporting what you did, right? It's showing you where you are right now based on everything you did in the past, right? It's not predicting what's to come. It's not predicting your future. If you continue on the path that you've been doing, then it is predicting your future because you're going to continue to present that way, right? But today, we're doing something a little different because we're reaching back to that topic that we talked about when we were talking about the mirror, and we're going to build upon that concept by going deeper into the concept of identity, right? Because we're going to figure out today what are the things that we need to do to make the mirror show what we want it to show later, right? So we're going to try to uh, use the mirror as some sort of like a block of clay, if you will, right? And we're going to chisel away at that image in that mirror so we can get the image that we want to show. That's what we're doing today, right? And because it's a Friday, I'm hype because we reached our 40 follower goal. We still have one subscriber. We're looking for more because we're going to keep pumping out content until each and every one of us show up as the best version of ourselves in any given situation that we find ourselves in. The thing about me saying that part right there is because we should only find ourselves in the situations we want to find ourselves in, right? Why? Because we're choosing to, right? Talked about the boundaries. We talked about our decision making. That puts us in certain situations, right? And so this is the reason by which we're going to dig deep on this topic today, talking about identity, because we want to build that. That's not, identity is not magic, right? Identity is built. It's built through repeated decisions. That's why when we had that conversation talking about discipline, this is what we're talking about, right? Discipline equals consistency. It's repetition. We're doing it consistently. That's how people are going to end up looking at you and saying, oh, he's this type of person. Oh, she's this type of person. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Appreciate the sub. Appreciate that, RB Visions. Look at you. Look at you. Come on now. Come on now. You joined the team. You joined the team because we're in here and you must want to be the best version of yourself. That's what we're here for, right? So come back. Keep coming back. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Follow your mans, Rich Bees, the real Rich Bees, because this is how we do and this is who we be. The best version of ourselves. So let's get into what we do. You know what we do on this channel. Anytime that we say a word that we feel like we know the definition of, we want to level set because that's the first part of decision making, right? We talked about the decision making framework. So the first step is to level set. Let's level set. What does identity mean, right? If you know it, put it in the chat. If you know what you think identity means, I'm not saying look it up because you know we're going to look it up, but I'm saying drop it in the chat right now, right? That little window on this side of the screen, drop it over there. And once you put it in there, I'm going to be going to the desktop so that way we can look it up. All right. What's going on? What's going on? Appreciate your first time chat. Appreciate that. Listen, let's look it up. We're going to go to the desktop. All right. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow. Here we go. We're going to go to the desktop. Wow. Right. And here we go. Let's look it up. The word today is identity. Boom. Let's see what it means. Identity. What we got? First one, the state or fact of remaining the same or one, the same one or ones as under varying aspect of conditions, right? The state or fact of remaining the same one or ones as under varying aspects or conditions. I mean, we don't even have to go to the rest of we don't have to go to the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to go to the rest of that. That is totally what identity means. This is the first definition that we use, the first one, right? Because all of the words mean something different, but we have to level set the understanding. So as we talk about it, we have an even playing field. We all know what that is, okay? But we're going to go on anyway. So the condition of being oneself or itself and not another. Boom, 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 and not another. That's huge, right? Because we're talking about your identity. Before we go back, before we continue, let's go to this screen because I'm going to tell you, this, we're talking about your identity. We're not talking about nobody else's. We're not talking about how you see somebody else, right? We're talking about how you see yourself as you look in that mirror. So we're talking about your identity, right? I'm talking about my identity, right? We own up to the things that we have become by taking accountability, and we figure out how we can make that a better image, right? That's showing to us. That's what we're here for. So let's go back to the desktop. On the desktop, we see that we're talking, boom, here we go. What is this? The condition of being oneself or itself. Condition or character as to who a person or what a thing is. The qualities, beliefs, etc. that distinguish or identify a person or thing. That's even better. That is even better than the first, right? Condition or character as to who a person or what a thing is. That's huge. Qualities, beliefs that distinguish or identify a person, place, or thing. Anyway, so now let's keep going. The state or fact of being the same one as described. As described. Interesting. All of these words that it's choosing to use is really giving you a sense of that it's something that is consistent, right? Identity is speaking of identity is speaking of something that is consistent. It doesn't change over time. It has certain qualities. It has certain beliefs that this makes up an identity, right? Are we on the same page? W's in the chat if that's what if you agree, then either you can put I agree or throw some W's up there, right? We winning over here. We winning over here. So what would you say? We said that identity is built, right? Because of those beliefs, you have to decide your belief. You have to decide, right? Anything that you want to become, you have to decide to do it. Then you have to decide to be disciplined in that thing, which generates consistency, right? Once you generate consistency, that then becomes your identity. It's something that you continuously do, which when other people look at you, they'll say, you're that. This is what you are, right? So you remember we came up with the decision making framework. That was one of the things that we did. We did a whole framework on decision making, and it was my framework. It's a custom framework for you to make better decisions. Okay. So go back and look at that. That video is on YouTube. I don't know whether Twitch is still holding it right now, but you can go to the YouTube, right? And if you don't know how to get to the YouTube, you can always go to my website, richbees.com/links, right? You can go to the website and you can get to all of the stuff that Rich Bees has going on. Okay. richbees.com/links. All right. So once you go to there and you see the decision making framework, it was something I thought about because most decision making frameworks don't take into account who you are, what you value, what your belief system is, where you want to go. It doesn't take into account that. It just takes into account the raw form of a decision itself, right? But I added in some other elements. So that's why I want you to go back and watch that video because I roll out this whole framework of making better decisions. This is a process in which, like I said, I went through all the other videos that I did when I started talking about decisions, and I looked at, well, all of this stuff goes together, so why don't I just make a framework for it? That's how I came up with that one. But now we have another framework, okay? This framework is more so figuring out your identity, right? So we have to go through a couple of steps to figure out how do you figure out what your identity is, right? Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to ask ourselves a couple questions, okay? We're going to ask ourselves a couple questions. And to me, the very first question that you have to ask when you're trying to identify who you are, what what is go back to the definition. Remember we said the condition of being oneself, right? We said the state or fact of being the same one as described, okay? We didn't even get down into the exact likeness in nature or qualities or an instance or point of sameness or likeness, right? So we didn't get down into all of that, but we still know that we're talking about you and the qualities that make you up, right? The beliefs that make you up tells us what your identity is. Now, here we go. So we're going to ask ourselves a couple of questions because we want to define what our identity is going to be. Who are we trying to become? Because that's where we're on. We're on the path to becoming. Now, first question, here it is. Who do you want to be? Because before anything else, remember, we went back, we were talking about goal setting, right? In goal setting, first we have to set, well, what is the goal, right? That's what this first question is talking about. Who do you want to be? What is the goal for you, right? And so it has to be specific, though. It can't be vague. It has to be very specific. Okay. So if you specifically say it, it would start with maybe saying like, I am the type of person who, right? Um, okay, let's put it into a pattern. Okay. So if I say like, I'm the type of person who finishes what I start, right? I'm the type of person, based on the boundaries video, that protects my time, right? I'm the type of person who protects my attention, right? We talked about the focus video. Like I'm just putting all this together. It it's it's not simple, but it is, right? It just takes a little bit of thought. And if you build upon, remember we talked about it in the stacking video, you stack an idea on top of an idea, you keep building upon it. So you find a foundation, a rock that you can start with, and you build upon that. In this, we've talked about you're no one, you're nobody, you're doing nothing if you don't set a goal. Everything in your life, you have to have a goal, right? And then that's what you're building upon because you can't, what are you creating a plan for if you don't have a goal? What is the plan for? You see what I'm saying? So it all starts with having a goal. When you're young, what do you say? I can't wait to be an adult, right? Oh, I want to be a fireman. Oh, I want to, fly planes, right? A pilot, right? All of these things, what you're doing is you're setting for yourself a goal. Now, as your life goes on, what you end up doing is you say, I really don't want to be that. Or, it takes too much work to be that. Or, I'm too short to do that. I'm too big to do that. Like, you have all of these things that you start backing down from the goal that you set when you were young, right? So now what we're doing is we're actually setting new goals because we should be doing that regularly. Every time you almost even close to a goal, you need to move the goal, right? It's a constant moving the goalpost because once if you say you want to be an adult, well, once you're almost an adult, you realize I'm almost an adult, right? I'm starting to pay my own bills, all this kind of stuff. But now, what's the next goal? You have to create a new goal, or else you're just an adult now. And now you're doing what? Sitting on the couch, being an adult. You ain't gonna be able to pay your bills long. You're gonna be a homeless adult. So think about it like that, right? So if you say, I'm the type of person who trains every day, right? You want to be a bodybuilder? Okay. You got to train every day, right? You want to be an athlete? You got to train every day, right? So once you set the goal, your identity needs to become that, right? So you have to set, well, what is that? Who do you want to be? That's the question we're asking at this point. Who do you want to be? Okay. You could even be a person who learns consistently, right? Because identity has to start with a definition. You have to define what is the identity that you want to be. Okay. All right. Next question. Are y'all keeping up? I hope y'all keeping up. Okay. All right. Make sure you keep up because it builds upon itself, right? So you can't miss a step. Are you gonna miss something? So now, next question. What does that person actually do? Right? So once you say, who do I want to become? Meaning what the goal is, then you have to figure out, well, what does that person actually do? What are the behaviors of that person? Right? What is the belief system of that person whom you want to become? Right? Your becoming is not like another person's becoming. Even though we may use the same tools to get to the person whom we're becoming, my becoming is not your becoming. We may even be trying to get to the same thing. So let's say, remember I said, you're young, you say, oh, I want to fly planes. Okay, I want to be a pilot, right? You figure that out and you're like, I want to be a pilot. Well, everybody has a different path to get there. Nobody's path is the same. So even if we both choose the same goal, we can still end up being a pilot. You can end up being a commercial pilot for an airline. I could be a fighter jet pilot, right? Somebody has to fly shuttles to the moon. You know what I'm saying? Like there's different types of pilots. And each one of them, they might start off with the same type of behaviors, the same type of understandings, the same type of training. But then when it gets specialized, it starts to diverge. Okay. So you have to figure out based on the identity that you choose, right? The who you want to become. Next, you have to figure out, well, what does that person actually do? What do they do to be able to get to that level? Right. And if you don't have an example because you're coming up with something that that doesn't even exist yet, then you have to figure out, well, what is it going to take? Right. What are the things that I'm going to actually have to do to become that person, to become that identity? Right. So you, even if you say, okay, I'm a disciplined person, right? Then the behaviors of being disciplined is what? It could be you wake up early, right? You finish tasks, right? You avoid distractions, you follow plans, right? Because what does discipline look like? We said discipline is basically equal to consistency, right? And so anything that you're put in front of, if you're disciplined, that means you're going to finish it. You're going to see it through, right? So you just have to look at it from that standpoint. Once you define who you're going to be, right? I want to be a person of my word. Well, what does that look like? Every time my behaviors might be, I watch my words because I don't want to say something that I'm not going to do, right? And then if I say something, I have to be a person that can remember what I said, which means that I have to be truthful. Because if you come up with something random and it's not true, then now you have to keep up with the lie. So it's a lot easier to keep up with the truth, right? So if you're going to become a person of your word, then you have to keep it, right? These are all behaviors that make up a person who can say that they're a person of their word. The mirror will show that they're a person of their word. Is this making sense? Hopefully, because what we know is that identity is proven through those behaviors that you have to do to become that person. That's how people say, oh, well, you are a disciplined person, right? Because if you're trying to say, like, I'm a disciplined person, and that's what you're saying to everybody, right? You're like, oh, well, I'm a disciplined person. Or you might say, I'm a person of my word, right? That's what you keep saying to everybody. I'm a person of my word. But yet your behaviors don't show that, then are you really that? Right? Because the definition, right? By definition, it says the exact likeness, right? A point of sameness, right? Which means that it has to be proven. It has to be the same, right? So I can't say that um, an apple is an orange, right? Because there's no sameness there. They both have different identities. They both went through two different paths to get there, and they didn't get to the same place. This is not. This is an apple. This is an orange. The orange is not the apple. The apple is not the orange. We know the identity of it, right? They taste different. They look different. They feel different. You know what I mean? They grow different. So it's proven through consistency. It's proven through you following up and being and showing the behaviors of that which you're saying you're going to be. Okay. So the next thing. So after we've asked ourselves those two questions, then what? Right? Then what? Because for me, once we know what we're becoming, right, who we want to be, and then we know the behaviors of who we want to be, then we have to figure out the very next thing. Well, if this is what I'm trying to do, then now I have to set my boundaries around that, because if I'm going to be consistent doing those behaviors, there's certain things that I can't do, right? And those are boundaries that I'm setting for myself. right? There's different language that I'm going to be using because I'm setting a boundary so I can become this thing that I'm setting the goal for. Okay? So for example, right? If I'm going to train, if I want to be an athlete, right? That I said, okay, boom, that's the definition. I want to be an athlete, or I am an athlete, right? Change our language. I am an athlete. Then what are the behaviors? Well, that means I have to train. That means I have to wake up early. That means I have to, get sleep. I have to go to bed early. That means I have to, whatever those behaviors are, those are the things you have to do to become it. And coming behind that, and now you're setting your boundaries or your non-negotiables, right? The things that you have to do no matter what does that look like, right? If I'm setting those non-negotiables, now I'm like, well, that might mean I have to go to the gym, 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week, right? Depending on how quick you want to get to your goal, right? You may have to, if you're trying to be an athlete, you might have to read daily because depending on the type of athlete that you're trying to become, like say you're trying to be a football player, right? They reading playbooks all the time because they got to know the plays. They got to study the plays. So you have to get to that point. To get to that point, you might have to start reading old playbooks. You might have to start looking at all other, books that have to do with athletes and their thought processes and their mindset and all that kind of stuff. You have to then study for that, right? And then you may have to end up um um figuring out training plans, right? You go into the gym, cool, but now you might have to get with like a mentor so you can get some kind of training plans that you know how to work out, right? Because you're going, but you need to be able to be effective while you're there, right? You may have to set a boundary like while I'm training, I'm on focus mode. I don't answer no phone calls. You see what I'm saying? All of this is setting your boundaries and your non-negotiables so you can actually become that who you're asking to be, right? That who you're saying that you want to become. You set the goal to become, okay? For me, I'm going to show you this. End of last year, I said I wanted to start streaming, right? And I told you this story that somebody was like, "Hey, the way that you talk on our calls and stuff like that, I'm surprised that, I think people will watch you because you say some of the wildest things, like the way you think is kind of different, and I know that there's people out there who would love to get this type of content." And I was like, So I thought about it. And in my thinking about it, it's really a question of, well, do I want to become a streamer? You see what I'm saying? Because anything I'm gonna do, that's what I'm becoming, right? Am I willing to put in the time it takes to become that? That's really the question. Am I willing to do it? Because you can set the standards, you can look at the plan, you could say that you're gonna be this all day, but are you willing to do what it takes to be that? That's at the beginning. That's even deciding, right? Because there is work that's gonna have to be done when you are going for a goal, when you are becoming something, right? Work gets you to becoming. Work gets you to arrive. If you ever arrive, right? Because it's a constant process. It's a constant process of becoming. So once you set your non-negotiables, right? That's when you realize that now I've set a standard for what I want to become, right? I've set the standard because I figured out what am I, what are my behaviors to be that, and what do I have to get away from? What do I have to push away? Not push away. What do I have to block, right? For me to have the time to become this. Okay? Once you do all of that and you are going through that becoming process, what does that mean? That means that we can now look in the mirror, right? We could look in the mirror and we can collect the evidence, right? We can collect the evidence because that's what you have to do now. We can look at the mirror because, like I said, we've now chose it. We figured out the behaviors. We figured out our non-negotiables, and then we started walking it out, right? And so now, once you start walking it out, keep checking back in the mirror to figure out, okay, what does the evidence say? What is the mirror saying to me now, right? Now, your mirror might not be a physical mirror that you see your reflection. Your mirror might be your spouse. Your mirror might be your child, right? Your mirror might be your cousin. Your mirror might be, you see what I'm saying? It's somebody who cares about you that can see the change that you've done, right? It might be your grandma. It might be your granddad. Somebody who's honest with you. You see what I'm saying? But that's why the first one I started off with was your spouse, right? Your partner, because they see you different than the rest of everybody else sees you. Okay. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's not. Because a lot of times your partner will see your flaws. Your partner will see the things that you, when you're not consistent, right? They can probably tell you if you say, I'm going to be this, they can probably say next, okay. You know what I'm saying? That okay, that scary, that okay of, you're right, right? And so your partner will be honest with you, as long as you don't force them to try to like make you feel good about yourself. I mean, there's a time for that, but in the becoming phase, you want them to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? You want them to be honest with you. Am I becoming that? Have I changed? Is there growth that you've seen? Right? And so when that mirror reflects back to you, then the evidence will say, well, this is who I am now. This is who I've become. Right? And don't take your foot off the gas pedal yet. You got to keep your foot on the gas now because you are that. Right? At that point, if you've done it, the mirror has said that you've done it, then you are that. Okay? So we have to remember that if you keep doing it consistently and you have now, like I said, we said we are that, the mirror has no choice but to tell us that we're that because it's all been built by the evidence, right? We didn't hope for it. We didn't wish for it. No, we chose a goal, we planned for it, we executed, right? And so it was all built on the evidence. The evidence shows, if you went to court, you know how they say, Your Honor, Your Honor, the evidence shows this person is disciplined. Your Honor, the evidence shows this person is a person of their word. That's what you want the mirror to say, right? Because the mirror is telling you where you are now. It's telling you where you are now, right? Because you do not become someone new by wishing. No, you don't. You become someone new by stacking evidence, right? Stacking evidence. The evidence is the behaviors. The evidence is what you've chosen to put boundaries around you. What are your non-negotiables? All of that stuff adds to the evidence. The evidence of who you have become. Okay? So here's what we want to do. Let's be very, very practical. Okay? Let's be very practical. Because to me, you have to be able to apply these things, whatever I'm saying in this one, okay? Because this is very huge. And the reason why I'm saying that is because y'all know we've been through a lot of topics. We've talked about a lot of things. But this hits the core. This hits the core of who you truly are. A lot of things that we've talked about up to this point was building, you know, the ability to even get to this understanding, right? That's why at the beginning I've referenced a lot of the videos and a lot of the things we've done, because I want you to see how this stacks up, right? That's why talking about discipline, that's why talking about, the mirror, that's why, talking about goal setting, talking about planning, talking about, making better decisions, all of this stuff, right? Being disciplined, being having focus, all of this stuff added up to this point right here. Everything that I've talked about adds up to this point. And it's about, who are you? Because the only way that you can become something different than what you were before is by stacking evidence of the things that we've already talked about in the other streams. So that way you can get to the fact of the mirror saying that you are this new becoming, this new growth oriented person, right? And if you're part of this channel, which anybody watching, again, I put the shout out for you to follow, because we still have the goal. We've now upped it to 50. So we're reaching for this next 50 goal, and we want to get some more subscribers. We're looking to get 10, you know what I mean, as soon as possible. Soon that'll be on the screen so everybody can know the subscriber count and stuff like that. But it's the whole point of continuing to grow. Growth continuously, right? Get you to be whoever you are. And whoever you are will honestly continue to change. You won't be the same person who you started streaming this stream with. You'll never be the same after watching this stream or any stream that I've done. Any of my video, go to YouTube, right there, The Real Rich Bees on YouTube. If you watch those videos, you will not be the same person. There's no way that you can be the same person. You can't see that information. You cannot hear that information and stay the same. I can guarantee you that. You can't stay the same because you know too much at that point, right? And once you know a certain amount, you won't want less. You won't want to be less than who you're called to be, who you want to be, who you're designed to be, who you're going to build yourself up to be. Okay? Because not everybody's built to be, if you really think about it, I'm going to give you this example. Michael Jordan wasn't built to be the GOAT in basketball. He wasn't built to be that. I mean, excuse me, he wasn't born to be that. Okay? I said that wrong. Let's say it again. Michael Jackson wasn't born to be the greatest basketball player of all time. He wasn't born to be that. He was built to be that. Why? Because and the evidence of such is the fact that he got cut from his basketball team when he was young, right? It wasn't like he was right out the gate, as a little kid prodigy, right? No, he put in practice. He hustled. He created the type of non-negotiables, the type of discipline, the behaviors. All of that stuff went together for him to end up becoming that. That was work. That was effort. That was drive. That might be what we need to talk about next. We might need to talk about drive. Have we talked about that? I don't think so. I don't think we've talked about drive. We talked about motivation, where we said discipline is better than motivation, right? But I don't think we talked about drive. That might be what we talk about on Monday. I don't know. I'm going to have to sit with it. But know that might be coming. That might be coming. It all depends on when I start looking at where we went, where we're going to go with this, right? Because I just want to make sure that we, you and I, are becoming our best self. That's the whole point. So in doing that, here's the exercise. Here's what I want you guys to do. And this is the reason why I did this today, because normally on Fridays, I normally don't stream in the morning. On Fridays, normally what I'm doing is, preparing myself for whatever I'm gonna do on Friday night. If I do stream Friday morning, I might be streaming a movie, I might be, streaming music, and we're just kind of, working together and stuff like that. But today, this was imperative coming off of yesterday, right? Coming off of yesterday and talking about all that we did yesterday, I had to come with this topic immediately. I couldn't put time in between it because you needed to be able to reference the boundaries because it was so important at becoming your identity. Okay? That was the last piece in the puzzle to becoming your identity, right? So here's the exercise. And that's why I'm doing this on a Friday. And I'm glad it's a Friday. I'm glad it's a Friday because that gives you Saturday and Sunday to do this and to really think it through before you come back Monday and we build. Okay? We build upon that. Here we go. What is it that we're talking about? I need you to get you a piece of paper, okay? Get you a piece of paper, and I need you to write down these 3 questions, okay? I'm gonna put these 3 questions in the chat though, okay? So I'm gonna say them, and then I'm gonna paste them in the chat, okay? And it's things that we talked about already, but I am gonna put them in the chat. All right, hopefully this. Let me make sure it is structured correctly for you guys, so that way y'all can just copy and paste it and put it in your notes app or whatever you got to do. But copy it because here we go. All right. First question. This goes back to what we talked about on the stream so far. But here we go. First question. Write down the person you want to become. Right? Be specific. Don't be vague. Be very specific. Write down the person who you want to become. And now, again, this is not locking you in. What this is doing is you have to remember, like I said, you're building that person. So if you say first that you want to be a person of your word, or you want to be a person of consistency, or you want to be a person that, right, get very specific. And you might have 3 or 4 of these things because there's multiple aspects to a person, right? You can say that you want to be a streamer. You can say that you want to be disciplined. You can say that you want to be, an athlete. You can say all of those things. Just know that there's work associated with each one of them, right? No, none of them is going to just be, I want to be that. Okay, I'm that. No, it's a becoming. It's behaviors, which is question 2. The next thing that you have to write down is the behaviors that that person does. So find someone that's already doing that thing and write down the behaviors that that person does. What does it look like? You might have to go to the library this weekend, grab you a book of the person whom you want to become. And I'm not saying that person, I'm saying using what they've become as the goal, not them, but you doing the research by looking at, well, what are the attributes that they've done? What are the behaviors that they've done for them to be able to achieve what they've achieved, or that thing that you like that they possess? So, for instance, if I say I want to be the greatest basketball player of all time, then I need to go look at a biography or something on Michael Jordan so that way I can find out, well, what are the things he did routinely, right? I may even, if I want to be the greatest basketball player of all time, I might need to look at 3 or 4 different basketball players that I felt are great. I might go look for the biography of maybe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? I might go look for Kobe, right? I might go look for something on LeBron, right? People who are high performers. I might look for something on Allen Iverson, right? So I'm thinking about these things because I know that these players are great. These players are renowned as great players, right? And so if I want to become the best, the greatest of all time, then that means I need to take the sum of all of those and put them together, put them in me. Okay? Not them, but the behaviors that they had. But what I feel like you'll find is that a lot of those behaviors are going to be consistent. The things that they did will be consistent because that's just what it takes to be great. Okay? In any sport, right? Some of these, or anything actually, some of these behaviors are going to be the same. Okay? The next thing is the non-negotiables, right? The non-negotiables, you have to get those in line, right? And I want you to caveat that question and say, the non-negotiables, I start tomorrow, right? Because these are the non-negotiables that you need to put into practice first thing tomorrow. So that's why I'm saying it's going to take you some time to really get this locked in. The understanding, when you write it down, here's the questions. I'm putting it in the chat for y'all so y'all can copy and paste them. Here we go. Boom. There's the questions. Copy them, put them in on your notepad or whatever, answer those questions, and that way you can start to put it into practice, right? Because what we know is that the mirror, when we talked about the mirror, it's not your enemy. It's not going against you, right? What the mirror is a scoreboard, right? And the beautiful thing about the scoreboard is it's updated every time you change the way you play the game, right? Remember, we were talking about the basketball. Mirrors like a scoreboard, right? It shows you when you've changed. It shows you when you've added another point, when you've added another aspect to you, right? The scoreboard is going to keep the score. Same way, the mirror is going to keep the score because it's telling you all the decisions, all of the actions that you did in the past. Here's where you are right now. This is what you look like right now. This is how you stack up right now. Okay? So listen, that topic of identity has now been settled. We know how to get to it. We know what we're going to need to do to become it. Now it's time to put in the work. Okay? Now it's time to put in the work. So thank you guys for jumping in the chat. Thank you guys for showing up today. Listen, it's been great. It's been great. Appreciate all the new followers. Appreciate the new subscriber. Hey, listen, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're really making progress, not only with the stream, but also in our becoming, the best version of ourselves. Because now we know the pieces. We know all the things that go into it. There's more. Trust me, there's more. But even if you just take the videos that we've already done, go through those, you'll figure out like, this is really going to change who you are. And if you do that and you change yourself, you'll change you, then you'll change your family, then you'll change your community, and then you'll change your state. You'll change you see what I'm saying? Like it just keeps spreading. It keeps spreading. That's how this works. This is like adding a little leaven to some bread, right? It's going to grow the whole loaf. That's what we're here for. Right? And I say this all the time. I say this in almost every stream. A rising tide raises all boats. Right? So we have to raise the tide. How do we raise the tide? One decision at a time. Making the best decision that we can each and every day. Right? But what we know is we make decisions based on our believed identity, who we believe we are, right? Who we believe we are is gonna cloud our decisions. It's gonna coat our decisions, right? It's gonna undergird our decisions. So we have to straighten out that. We have to straighten out our identity for who we really want to show up as, right? So that's what we're on. That's what we've done. I feel like we're making progress. I hope you guys are liking this. I hope you guys are really getting some good value out of this content. Because for me, I'm not worried about, numbers per se, because what I know is that the more people who even if it's only one person, right, who gets the content and is able to change and build themselves up, all of the stuff that I'm doing is still worth it, right? Because there's an old adage that says, each one teach one. You know what I'm saying? Each one teach one. I'm trying to teach as many as I can. I want to make sure that each and every person who wants to be better, who wants to show up in their relationship better, who wants to show up in this world better, can understand the way to do it. Because I can't tell you what to do, but what I can do is lead you to the water, right? I can't make you drink it. I can lead you to the water. I can give you all of the direct. I can be your GPS. There you go. There you go. That's it. I can be your GPS and I can tell you how to get to the water, right? All the steps, when to make a turn, when to keep straight. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm being your GPS when it comes to becoming your best self. So thank you for showing up for me today. Thank you for showing up for you today, because that's most important, right? You might come for you and then you end up with the vibes. And so we're putting off good vibes, right? Putting off good vibes. If nobody's told you today, hey, Rich Bees loves you. Thank you for coming. Hey, remember, tell a friend to tell a friend, follow your mans, Rich Bees, the real Rich Bees, on all social medias, Rich Bees. Come back next time. And I know that I'll probably be streaming later on tonight. I think if I do, it'll be sometime around that 5 o'clock time, because that's the time that I normally go live on a Friday. So keep checking in. That's why I said you gotta follow, you gotta stay locked in, because when I go live, you get the notification. That way you can just click the notification and boom, we can get started immediately. Because you know I'm always on something. We're gonna grow, we're gonna get better, and we've now, oh, matter of fact, side note, we've watched both airplanes now. We watched Airplane 1 and we watched Airplane 2, right? So now we have to watch the next movie that I really want you guys to see. I think the movie that I'm gonna play this next time is another one of my great ones, which is Hollywood Shuffle. If you've never watched that movie, it is crazy the way they use language. This is what I be on, right? Because if you think about all that we talked about, right? We're talking about language, we look up words, we try to make sure we understand the definition of them so we can be using them in a way that can adequately express what we're trying to get across. And so if we're level setting with the words, this movie is a good play on words. That's why I said Airplane 1 and Airplane 2 was so good, because of the way they chose to use words. This one is another one, right? This one is another one. It might come off a little for some people. So, parental guidance is suggested. But point is, it's a funny movie. All right. See you next time. Thank you for coming. Rich Bees,